thank you everybody for your commitment of time today. Very exciting, very appreciative of your time and listening to our great executive panel that we brought together today of leaders, sales leaders, executive leaders, but more importantly, we're diving very deep with developers and people that lead those strategies, including David and Jamie, and we'll get into very specific use case applications. So again, commitment of time important. I'll stop talking and then hand it over to Jamie. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. For those of you that aren't familiar with Five9, Five9 is an industry-leading provider of cloud contact center solutions, bringing the power of cloud innovation to more than 2,000 customers worldwide, and we facilitate over 1 billion customer engagements annually. Five9 provides end-to-end solutions with digital engagement, analytics, workforce optimization, and AI, focused on increasing agent productivity and business results. So in addition to that, Five9 is also the #1 supplier of intelligent virtual agents in the world with over 850 IVA customers globally. So I'm hoping we can share today some of that experience with you, and you can learn a little bit more about intelligent virtual agents and digital workforce. And my background is, my name is Jamie Rouleau. I'm part of the AI and automation team at Five9 that works with technology partners and customers to really help identify customer use cases and consult on design and implementations. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jamie. David?
Nice to be with you, everybody. My name is David Berenson. I've been in the contact center industry for about 30 years in a variety of roles, from program management, business analysis, contact center design, and architecture. And my current specialty at Five9 is designing IVAs, whether chat or voice, to address strategic customer needs.
Thank you, David. Maurice?
Yeah, Maurice De Silva, aka Mo, and apologize in advance for making you remember another name. David and Jamie were nice enough to double up. So I run the Canadian sales team here. I've been doing that for a year and a half. I've been Canadian my whole life. So we're really focused on what the Canadian market needs, and Jamie's touched on Five9's focus. I'd say the only thing I'd add to that is, as much as we focus heavily on customer experience, employee experience is a big one too. And I think you're going to see the benefits in that today as it relates to really, your positively impacting your brand ambassadors within your contact centers. Jamie?
Awesome. Thank you, Mo. And I'd like to hand it over to David, sir.
Very good. Thank you. I'll leave the introduction of myself as brief as I can and spend a little bit of time talking about the company and how we're positioned to be on this call, working together with Five9 to talk to you all about the contact center and IVA solutions for better customer and employee experience. We've been around for a while. I've been around for a while. We've been a systems integrator and what I think about as a custom code shop for 35 years. So for those of you on that call who have been around also kind of for that long, you also have witnessed many forms of transformation along the way. And I think we're seeing a remarkable transformation today in the contact center and the customer engagement space. And we'll spend a bunch of time talking about that. Online's portfolio cornerstones are what we think of as digital transformation and security, those two cornerstones. We have about 400 consultants and we do most of our business in North America and also starting up in EMEA. Personally, I am executive responsible for the customer engagement service line, the practice and the service line, which we think about as a connected set of services across both those digital transformation security pillars. Our core competency for the CE practice is in the contact center, delivering contact center solutions. We've been doing that for over 15 years, much of those in the enterprise on-prem, complex big iron solution space. But, in about 2019, I'll say, we pivoted more to, we decided to pivot more to cloud-based contact center solutions and really focus on cloud and automation, which we see as some emerging tech pre-COVID. The VAR relationship, the reseller and the professional services relationship we have with Five9 has been a real critical success factor for us, making that pivot successfully and where we are today. The virtual contact center platform that Five9 offers is the foundation of that transformation. But we're really excited for the future of IVA and the maturing AI that we see around it. And we'll spend most of our time talking about that today, I think. Real briefly on the suite of services that we bring to the customer engagement space, we have a security practice. It's the center of everything that we do. A lot of compliance work, PCI compliance for QSA across North America and EMEA, HIPAA compliance for healthcare, GDPR for privacy, which is important to the contact center and customer service relationships. Cloud security, but also secure DevOps and the whole notion of taming the bots, which is something that we may get deep enough into today. We have a Salesforce partnership as well. So they're obviously critical to our customer engagement success practice because they participate in that sort of hyper personalization customer journey and C360 space that we're in. So we draw and work closely together with our Salesforce partnership in that space. I think about our digital product development and digital transformation space. For 35 years, we've been slinging custom code. So today we see more important than ever, the integration required to tie in the different systems. We see extensions through mobile and cloud apps and portal, but we also see that whole consultative customer experience design and the consulting work that's required to put all that stuff together. Another sort of convergence recently is, for years we've been working with our customers managing their, our own infrastructure and their infrastructure, legacy networks and office, products and office infrastructure. And today, we really see that morphing and transforming towards unified communications and the relationship that unified communications is now having with the contact center. And finally, a service management practice where we go to market with a couple of partners as well. We've typically thought of that as cloud and infrastructure management, but the more we see the proliferation of bots and the integration, we also see the important play that Service Management Foundation has for customer service response. We're talking about employee experience meets customer experience workflows. So traditional workflows for the help desk, like self-service password reset. We're really starting to take those workflows and make them customer facing and making part of the customer, self-service response space, provisioning and deprovisioning products. So just kind of the key takeaway there is we have a suite of products across the portfolio that come together to solve and address customer engagement problems. And we're seeing that convergence and confluence sort of more and more as this transformation space takes off in the contact center. Sorry for going a little bit long, but I thought that background might be important. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David. Thank you, team. And Jamie is actually going to take us into a demonstration actually to help visualize actually what we're talking about and what we're going to be deeply talking about. So Jamie, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you everybody for joining us today and really expanding your knowledge on digital workforce solutions enabled by AI. And we hope we can give you some insight that you can use to understand how these innovative solutions could help in improving customer experience, maybe enabling automation with human levels of understanding that can be used for your organizations and for your customers. We thought it might be a good start to show you how these systems and software really all come together in real life interactions. There are some nuances that really make these solutions unique and highly valuable to organizations and the customers you support. So, if we start from there, that might give you a framework for asking some questions as we go forward in the discussion. And what I'm going to share with you today on this interaction is what we did a few weeks ago at a demonstration. And it's really how a digital engagement is being powered by a combination of AI agents combined with your live agents and your employees. And how that could engage your customers to handle some self-service interactions, and even transitioning that interaction to a live agent so that the customer would receive even higher levels of service than they would today with the effectiveness of the added AI support. And what you'll be viewing is a combination of an AI agent and a live agent interacting with a customer over multiple communication channels. And that's become a big trend in our world where voice carries over to chat, chat carries over to SMS, and these kind of interactions are becoming a blended area that's important for a lot of organizations. And some of you may think that the live agent in the interaction is a digital agent, but trust me, he's actually a live agent. He's just a little stoic on his voice. The example I'm going to share with you right now is it's about a healthcare company, but hopefully you can imagine that the authentication of the callers, checking accounts, making payments, appointments, this kind of self-service can be done across multiple industries and companies, depending on the need. So hopefully you can think about how it can be applied in your world and what you guys are doing. Hopefully you'll be able to see also how conversational AI is being used to hopefully enable a more frictionless experience for both the caller and the agent. So if you're okay with that, let's take a peek at this, and then we'll kind of break it down a little bit as we go into the session.
I just received a text message from my doctor's office reminding me about an outstanding copay. This medical practice has really revamped the voice channel. So let's call the number back they texted me from. We'll be greeted by Rosie, a friendly member of their digital workforce.
Hi, Erin. Thanks for calling WellnessWorks. I'm Rosie. How may I help you?
Yeah, hi, I'd like to pay my bill.
Your account balance is $20. Would you like to use the card on file?
Yes, please.
Let's confirm your identity using voice biometrics. Please say your secret passphrase.
Powerball monkeys win contests.
Perfect. You are authenticated, and your payment is confirmed. You will receive an email receipt shortly.
Sweet.
While I have you, I noticed you have a pending action item. Would you like to schedule your follow-up appointment with Dr. Furman now?
Sure.
Great. When would you like to come in?
Can you do Monday the 20th at 8 a.m.?
Dr. Furman's office doesn't open until 9 a.m.
Well, I've gone at 8 a.m. before. Can you see if they can meet me early?
Yes, I can submit a request on your behalf. Please hold while I confer with my human colleague at the doctor's office.
So the scheduling team in the back office receives a Slack message asking for an appointment exception. They can approve or deny these requests while the caller remains with the digital employee.
Your request has been approved. Your appointment with Dr. Furman on Monday, September 20th at 8 a.m. at the Main Street office is confirmed. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Yes, actually. Have my lab results come in yet?
I see new lab results in your patient record, but I'm not authorized to share them. May I transfer you to someone to go over your results?
Yes, please.
Okay, transferring.
So what you just experienced was a customer going through a conversational AI experience with a digital agent for paying a bill and making an appointment. But what you also did, what we also saw was a very secure way of authentication with voice biometrics. It may have been subtle, but the system was so intelligent that we understood already who that caller was from their phone number coming in. And then we used voice biometrics to enable them to get a more secured amount of information, which happens a lot in different organizations. And so that voice biometrics application would allow even more hyper-personalization as far as the experience throughout the whole interaction. And again, that it could be the authentication could be handled through natural language just as easy. So, you know, the point of that is allowing your clients or your customers or your employees to use these systems in a natural language type of environment, which would allow them not to have to go through frustrating menus any longer to get information they wanted or to be able to do interactions. And the call continues as we go through this. The digital agent automates the customer's request for an appointment. So it can even do more complex interactions and even addresses a special exception request. It understood that the customer had made this special request that didn't confide within the rules that they were the appointment setting model, that it had to be escalated to a human agent to get an approval or do some special thing for them. And it actually did that transition there, and hopefully in a very subtle way and seamless. So let me continue the interaction. You can see now the agent interaction being supported with some AI technology afterwards.
So the call routes to an agent at a contact center named Chris, perfectly qualified to help me understand my test results. Chris receives a screen pop with all the information from my time with Rosie, including a link to the labs, so he can quickly pick up where Rosie left off.
Hi, Aaron. I see your lab results. Let's go over them.
Okay, thanks. Hey, should I be concerned that my lab results caused me to speak with somebody? 5-9 Agents Assist detected that I was worried and proactively provided Chris information that he can use to calm my fears.
That happens anytime values come back outside the normal range, even when they're minor. Looking at your labs, it seems your uranium levels are just a tad high.
So Agents Assist helped Chris understand what the causes of elevated uranium might be, as well as some possible recommendations.
Has anything changed with your drinking water recently?
Well, I did recently move to a new old historic home. It's beautiful, but who knows what the pipes are made of? Maybe that's the issue. What can I do?
I recommend installing a reverse osmosis water filter for your drinking and cooking water. Since
Great.
your levels are only marginally elevated, I think this is a good place to start.
Great, thanks.
Do you mind if I confer with your doctor's office to see when they want you to repeat your labs?
Sure, thank you. So Chris is going to use the integration with Microsoft Teams to conference with someone at the doctor's office. He feels empowered to leverage the knowledge workers at his company without having to transfer me from person to person. This greatly increases his first contact resolution rate and makes me happy because I can get everything sorted all at once. Chris and the back office team, they decide on a plan of care and then he can get back to me quickly.
Thanks for holding. Let's plan to test you again in 6 months, okay?
Perfect.
So I just wanted to point out on the second part of the interaction that you just saw is it was showing that a live agent working with a caller, but the digital agent was actually still there as far as the AI agent. We call it agent assist. It was working in the background. It was literally using natural language processing and conversational AI to transcribe the whole conversation and literally listening and understanding what was being said on the call. That AI agent, as was brought up in the demonstration, was actually giving tips to the agent so that they could understand what the caller was talking about. Maybe it actually even was sophisticated enough to understand the sentiment. So as that caller was concerned about the specific part of the call, it brought up a point on how to address it. And not only is guidance going out throughout the call, all of the data is being collected. This is also an important point maybe to think about for those of you who are responsible for understanding the customer experience or understanding customer behavior and how you can improve that. We are now able to gather all that information so that you can actually use that, mine it, and ultimately even predict behavior that's going on to improve your operations as you go forward. So, that's one of the unique things with the intelligent virtual agent and AI applications that we have. Not only would you be able to use it for the automation, but they can improve customer experience, and then on the back end, improve operations by understanding the data and how to manage that going forward. So with that, I'm going to hand that over to James. That's the end of the demonstration. Maybe we can kick off into the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Joel, can you transition to the initial Q&A questions, please? So Jamie, just as we transition to the slides, the 18 years that I've worked in the CE industry and working very closely with clients, the evolution and the sophistication of the technology is incredible. And the sophistication of the security layers and the AI layers that have evolved over time. We'll start from an educational perspective. Are IVAs and IVRs the same thing?
They certainly aren't. They have some similarities, but I want to just point out the difference. Yeah, and here's a good way for it to look at it. At Five9, we have a platform that creates these intelligent virtual agents. And a good way to look at it is very much like a human agent in a contact center. You have the ability to, but it's a digital agent. Never takes a break, works 7 days a week, costs a fraction of what a human agent costs. But what's unique is we can deliver this interaction or this agent through conversational AI and automation with human levels of understanding. And that's what makes it different. Also, from what makes it different from a typical interactive voice response system that you may have used in the past or you have today is really to handle these more complex and lengthy customer interactions, as you saw in the demonstration. And you can communicate effectively over multiple communication channels. So that same interaction we saw doing on voice can actually be done on a chat interaction or SMS or messaging, depending on what your customers are, what's important to your customers and what's important to you as far as your business models. And I think one of the things that's did you have a point? One of the other things that stand out here too is that you no longer need to have those nested menus like you have with interactive voice response systems. You can see it's like, what can I help you with? It's a bi-directional discussion. It's natural. We want it to be that way. It's getting that way for our customers. And so, these are, in my feeling, some of the most important things. And also keep in mind, these things are really intelligent. They can speak over 120 different languages, as an example. So, think about it in the audience here. How can you use this for your own organization, and what type of applications could they be used for are probably the right way to look at it.
Excellent, Jamie. Thank you. David, I'd like for you to contribute on that question. Thank you.
I wanted to share, Jamie is exactly right. Channel independent, language independent, leveraging that same intelligence, across the entire domain. I have a customer right now who's developing or for whom I'm developing a solution in 14 languages. It's going to go global. It's extremely exciting. Now, the other thing I wanted to add to what Jamie was sharing is that it's not just about understanding the words, but it's also understanding the key elements that are required to support the interaction. For example, a social insurance number. Can I pick that out of the conversation? Or a bank card number, a dollar amount, a city, a temperature, all these different things, all these entities are really key. And let's rewind to the demonstration just a minute ago, the sentiment. So now we've got the basic layer of understanding of the words, the data that supports the intent that the customer is getting at, and the sentiment. So through that continuum, we can approach the customer in a really meaningful way, independent of channel and language.
Excellent, thank you. I mean, the critical aspect of the Omni Analytics associated with the customer journey and understanding all those touch points along their journey, and understanding the opportunity to understand that client in the detail and have that personalization, as you shared, is critical. Thank you very much, Jamie and David. Joel, can you move on to the next question? Thank you. So as we evolve and look at the technology, what are the differences, and if you can explain, between bots and an IVA? And David, you can start. Thank you.
Well,
or Jamie, continue. My apologies.
Well, let me start with saying, there's probably a lot of noise out there with regards to chatbots and AI. These are terms that are being thrown out a lot in the industry. And, clearly chat is another major channel going on in our world, right? It's something that's becoming very prolific in the way that our customers or our employees are doing business, because of the ease of use of how that channel is being developed, in addition to voice. But, I'll give you my perspective. There's literally in that world, there's 4 different types of chat when you really think about it. You have your chat to chat interactions, right? That's human, customer to maybe agent in this case. That's one form. You have another level of chat that was a first generation chat, which we probably all used before. They're rules based. You try to do some self-service, they work okay. You ask a few questions, they break. You can't go anywhere. They just kind of go in a loop. And that's what the majority of those things are right now. Then you have companies out there that are stating that they have AI, which is in their chat area, which is a little ambiguous. And the reality is most of those systems are really based on open source applications and some basic tools for AI and natural language. And so they work better than rules-based ones, but they also break, right? They don't understand everything effectively. And then you have systems like that, what you use. We use deep learning chat, natural language engines for our chat applications. These are the ability to understand not only content, but context. And so these natural language engines, developed by some of the biggest guys in the world as far as their investments, the Googles, the IBMs of this world. The reason why we tend to work with them and use them for our systems is because not only have they invested billions of dollars into this area to create AI, it's not really that, it's the data. The ability for them to gather the data going through their systems all day long. In that case, that's also the great reason with AWS, with Alexa, is because all those interactions you're having on your mobile phone with Google, as far as Android, are being picked up. And so that's feeding this natural language engine, which are ultimately machine learning systems. And they're getting better and better. And that's why we have a dominant, position with that as far as usage of these deep, the best of class of these applications. And so that makes the difference. So if you're looking at a chat-based implementation or a chatbot, really think about what's going to be useful for you. If you're looking just for a really basic system, you may be able to get away with a rules-based one, or you might be able to get away with those first generation, open source ones. But if I would really tell you, I think the best solution obviously are the deep learning chat models that are being used by companies like ourselves and others.
Excellent. Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it. And David, as the technology has evolved, how long ago was your first bot developed, or have you? The technology time frame of that obviously is not too long, but significant enough. Sorry.
Oh, going back, years now, looking at the way we were forced to develop bots, originally it was, night and day by comparison. The things that we have at our disposal now, to Jamie's point, the deep learning models, give us a whole new realm to explore in terms of things like customer personalization, even demographic personalization, being able to speak and understand specific to an accent. Things, an obvious distinguishment that I have right now is Canadian French versus French French, two very different accents. We can give people a much better experience, give them much more latitude to explore, an interaction the way that they want to, not the way that we want to. Extremely powerful.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Joel, can you continue the next question, Mike? David, as we look at the practical use cases and obviously the critical success factors of what's driving the demands for IVAs in the marketplace, just like you to speak a few moments on that if you could. Thank you.
Yeah, it feels almost like David and Jamie both touched on a lot of it, right? In that sort of technology maturity and stuff. But I think about it maybe in two ways. I think about the customer or consumer marketplace, where once there was a lot of reluctance to engage in self-service and automation and bots that behaved poorly. Those days are changing. I got a 16-year-old daughter running around the house these days, and she's not interested in talking to a human on the other side of the fence. So, the customers that, that our commerce systems are talking to are definitely more acceptance. I think remarkable things are happening in the realm of customer service and engagement. After years of rejecting that sort of self-service, customers are changing their tune. They're showing a preference for self-service solutions and bots, provided that they do their job well. Because we all know the frustration that comes with a poorly designed customer exchange workflow, getting into infinite loops and not being able to get out of them and talk to agents and stuff like that. So, not to underestimate the power of good conversational design, conversational AI design. But we know that the customers are not only asking for it, but for demanding it. And with more devices at their disposal every day, consumers expect seamless service across multiple channels. And so those things I think on the consumer side are really driving the demand for it. Table stakes, of course, are a better customer experience, a better employee experience, doing all that stuff with a better ROI, and we're seeing those business drivers, also being enabled by the technology. But what both Jamie and David said in terms of the remarkable progression and maturation of the technology, I think is at the core of it. Especially the conversational AI technology, it's matured and starting to realize the customer experience and ROI problem that we've been talking about for years. But Jamie touched on it, Google, Amazon, IBM, let's not leave Microsoft out of it. They've all made possible with their billions of dollars of investments and their multiple billions of voice exchanges that we've deep learned from to get to the point where we're at and continue to learn and get better. They make it economically feasible to have built kind of an IVA or a bot or a voice interaction in a big on-prem, big iron contact center system that we've been involved in for 15 years. Well, you'd have spent your first billion just with the voice part of it. And that's just something you can kind of buy off the shelf and integrate it. I'm oversimplifying things a little bit, but we've let Google and Amazon and IBM and their customers make that investment for us to get to the products to where they're now feasible and higher quality. David touched on it. We can now, grab utterances and understand intent. We can extract specific pieces of information. We can control the dialogue. And those are fundamentally important things to be able to create that workflow and customer exchange digitally. And then that technology maturity, both at that pure NLP space, but also we see convergence and we see our partners like Five9 making investments in acquisitions, for example, the inference acquisition and the integration of all of the capabilities of AI and what inference has been building over years into the Five9 platform. Huge, leapfrog capability in terms of our ability to be able to get the kinds of things that David Berenston was talking about, 14 different languages across the globe, That only happens when the investments made by players like Five9 in the industry enable. So we're very pleased to be there. But I see those two things: customers really demanding it, and technology enabling it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I mean, obviously the importance, the critical success of customer retention, driving memorable experiences, and that customer value is critical. And Maurice, I'd just like you in that aspect to contribute as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you saw in Jamie's example, when I referred to the positive impact on employee experience through COVID, many brick and mortar operations just either ceased to be available or were greatly reduced. So I call it the digital interface became really your interface with a brand. And as agents or brand ambassadors on the phone, we're dealing with either repetitive asks, tasks, the ability for us to automate that, take it away from them so that they don't have to do that, really improves their quality of work or their work experience. But more importantly, what you saw in Jamie's example was we were able to help the agent, right? I mean, otherwise, if you're new, if you're stuck with a customer who is, struggling, having a challenge or upset, the ability for us to guide them and help them in real time without having to reach out to a supervisor or otherwise, it just reassures them. It really does, make them feel like they've got the tools, at their disposal to be able to really interface with and have a positive interaction, right? Because the reality is, if you're interfacing with someone who's having a bad day at work, it's probably going to be a bad experience for you, right? I mean, we've all had that, right? And you feel for them too, right? It is what it is. We've all been there. But layering on top of that, the product maturity and integration options. One of the things I'd say that's different that I see when interfacing with organizations that are looking at making that shift is there's starting to be that realization of what's available now. We look at ourselves as a bit of an abstraction layer. So we act as connective tissue within this space. As much as we can provide everything within the platform, and obviously online as a partner can kind of fill in those gaps, right, with regards to services or their broader scope. You don't have to stop using a particular element of your AI strategy. You don't have to stop using other components you've already invested in. We can connect into seamlessly, enhance with, because we have our API library. We can really help you extract and reuse and get your full return on investment within that platform. So, for us, our biggest challenge as an organization is just making sure we understand what your business is trying to accomplish, and just being able to share what we've done for others, in a similar case. So, we've pushed really hard to try to understand the business. This isn't so much, do you need a chat license or an email license? This is really, what are you trying to do with that interaction? And more importantly, through all of this, at the end of the day, how do we even stop that interaction from happening? Meaning, what can we proactively do through automation, through using all of these tools to make sure that your customer has the information that they need before they have to call in to get it? And that's the ultimate, right? Is the call you never get is the best one, really. And I think that's what we work to achieve, and that's what we're trying to do as an organization, and with the questions that we dig on, as it pertains to how your business works. So, and like I said, partners like Online really help us round that portfolio out and that experience and the true value there.
Excellent, thank you. And you're so right. I mean, my experience in 16 years working with great brands, the investment in the EX is critical, and we quickly learned that EX equals strong CX. It's critical aspect of connecting those two together. Thank you, Maurice, and thank you, David. Joel, can you transition to the next slide? Thanks. So I guess as we look at our last question and kind of evolve through the discussion, which we very much appreciate your time, and continue on, how does the adoption begin, Maurice? From an aspect, how do you start the journey? How do you look at the adoption in terms of this capability into your CE practice? Sorry.
Yeah, I'd say, I know everyone will say, oh, you're the sales guy, that's why you're saying it. But, it doesn't lend itself extremely well to the RFP process, just because of that understanding of the business. Or if you're going to do it, my advice to organizations is make sure you include those salient elements as it pertains to how your business runs. It's really critical, right? If whoever you're working with doesn't understand how to use that data, it is what it is, and that's a sign. But for us, that's as critical as how much volume are you receiving, et cetera, right? Because two things happen. One, if we don't understand what the business is trying to do, if you don't communicate that, you're just going to end up with a tech solution, and then you're going to be trying to wedge something in as opposed to solve the problem. So I think that is a unique, it's a unique opportunity when you're looking at that digital transition. The other one is really just making sure that you've mapped through kind of your where you start to where you're going to end, right? To Jamie's point, don't start with the most complex things. Like, this is not an all or nothing. This is very much an agile type process. So, start with what's start with the low hanging fruit. Work with us and online to identify that low hanging fruit. Make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck, right? Because as much as you can automate and apply AI to everything, I know it's not the most popular answer, but that's not always the best thing economically to do. Right? If you do something twice a year, it's probably best to manually just do something twice a year, right? Don't automate it, because you're going to invest a lot of time in doing that. Now, the other piece, though, is this is a unique technology, because as you look at this and you understand the business, you're constantly tuning. So you're constantly looking for ways to advance. This is one of those things where the more you put through it, the better your return on investment is, as opposed to, typically when you get more volume or have to use it more, it's a pretty linear relation, right? To at a certain point, the two just go hand in hand. With this, you're constantly getting that value extracted. So that's, to me, it's just my advice is share as much information around what your business objectives are. They're as important as your technological objectives. So
Absolutely. And customer and employee objectives as well. Absolutely.
Employee, when I say business, that, the reality is
absolutely.
retaining your employees should be one of your number one focuses, right? Otherwise, there's nobody there to take that interaction. So
Yeah, we've talked about looking at contact drivers, what's driving the business, as you point, what's driving the volume, and also on the customer journey mapping and understanding the most memorable value and most valuable touch points along that journey as well. And looking at how you can map that into the journey where it makes sense to us, your point. And thank you, Maurice. Is there anything else that you want to add to that before we transition to David?
Yeah, I have actually very little to add to what Mo was talking about around the two concepts, crawl, walk, run, and agile. They're different but related concepts. And first of all, I should say we've been an agile shop forever, kind of as that software development function, and you learn a lot of things about how people interpret what agile is or isn't. But starting with kind of crawl, walk, run, Mo touched on it. Automate the simple and the repeatable. Look for those high volume, low value transactions that your agents don't want to handle anyway. Speaking of agent experience, they'd be more than happy to dump those calls for something of higher value that they feel they're really contributing to the business around them and the team that they support. So those agents off of those things that can be handled by a digital agent. If you keep it simple, even better, as a learning learning point for the team that's developing the systems as well. And by doing that, you're also lowering the risk of implementation, both the technical implementation, but I also say the rollout. You can be a little bit careful about who your customer audience is and customer segmentations for some of your early rollouts to minimize the impact potentially of new technology to your customers, also something to think about. But most of all, like, if you're able to automate those simple and repeatable tasks, you will experience very good and very early ROI on your projects. And there's nothing like early ROI to fund continued investment in improving your contact center. So crawl, walk, run, to me, I also think you really gotta, the guys have all touched on it and they do a better job than I do, but there's a big difference between scripted AI and more complex learning AI that self-discovers and self-tunes and fixes itself along the way. They're two very different things to talk about. We're all the way there in some areas, and we're not all the way there in others. So I think about scripted exchanges. I know David and Jamie can do a much better job of this than I can. But simple call steering metrics, maybe a directory service. A little bit of an extension, frequently asked questions is a really nice place to start as well, and tapping into your FAQ data and exposing it to the customer. But when you think about self-service, depending upon the complexity and what you're trying to do, you are introducing some new things. You're introducing considerations for identity and access management at the front end of that call. They showed the biometrics capabilities. There's some work that goes on to the back end of plugging in all of that identification into your enterprise and making sure the customer is only gaining access to those bots that provide them access to self-service and data that they can see. You're also potentially introducing some complexities around compliance that you need to be thinking about, either privacy or health-related personal information exchanges. when you're asking a customer for their social security number or their account code or their policy number, or whatever those things are, you got to know that you're farming out that utterance to cloud data centers that are out there somewhere. And you got to know where your data is. You have a certain responsibility to be able to understand those flows. So, those are some of the things I think about in terms of crawl, walk, run. I do think about Agile differently. I think that business value is the priority, and creating short-term projects known as sprints in that space that produce usable and high-value functionality early. But that's a different kind of paradigm than crawl, walk, run, but they are related. And the other Agile construct I'll bring in there is don't forget to retrospect. Take on small projects, drive yourself to produce usable and high-value IVA exchanges in this case as quick as you can. But give yourself time to retrospect, because there will be lessons learned and there will be some pivots to make. We've experienced them for ourselves. I'm sure the Five9 team as well out in their field. And so there's a continual learning that goes on about best practices. Technology is evolving, new versions monthly. And so, there's a lot of times that you got to back up a little bit and make sure that you retrospect on what went right, what went wrong, what you need to change.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, that strategic vision aspect that we've talked about, Mauricio referenced as well, obviously is critical. Thank you very much, David.